They went across the lake, so this is now Mark 5 we're in now. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes, and there's a footnote down here saying some manuscripts, whatever, Gadarenes. We're east of the Sea of Galilee. We're on the east side of the Sea of Galilee now. This is Gentile territory. If you look at the back of your Bible, you're probably going to have a map back there. Let's take a look. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. It's hard to see. But we are somewhere here now. That is east. There's the Sea of Galilee. That's where the storm was, and we have moved east of there. Oops. And we are in this region somewhere. And this is Gentile territory. We know this because pigs are going to play a prominent role in this next story, and Jews would not have kept pigs. Let's go ahead and just read this now so we get this context established. Leviticus, of course, the Jews had a number of animals they couldn't eat, and one of the chief among those animals were the pigs. Leviticus 11, verse 7, he's giving them a list of animals they can't eat. Verse 7, it says, "And the pig, although it has a split hoof completely divided, does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat their meat or touch their carcasses. They are unclean for you." And he repeats the same thing in Deuteronomy 14, I believe. Yeah. Deuteronomy 14:8, he says the same thing. So they weren't allowed to have pigs, and the people in this story have pigs. So we have passed through, we are not in Jewish territory at the beginning of this chapter in Mark 5. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes, or whatever, how you pronounce that word. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained, hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Has someone act like that? I don't know. Some of that behavior sounds, I don't know about demon possession. That's something that's genuinely mysterious to me. But I don't have really all that hard a time believing someone would act this way, frankly. Now, in this case, it's attributed to demon possession. Maybe it is in other cases, too. I can't say that. I can't say. That I genuinely just don't know. But this is not behavior that I have a very difficult time seeing someone engage in, if we consider that someone could be crazy. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of that man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." A Roman legion was 6,000 soldiers. So I guess this guy has 6,000 demons in him. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. Apparently, they are afraid that Jesus will send them to some place of holding punishment for demons called the pit or Tartarus. I don't really want to look too far ahead, but we'll go ahead and do it right now just to kind of help get the point across. The epistles of Peter, which are written years later, First Peter himself is probably responsible for the content of the Gospel of Mark. But the epistles of Peter and Jude also, which is basically a copy of 2 Peter, make reference to this idea of angels being in prison somewhere, or demons being in prison somewhere. That would be a little that would be. Let's not get to that. That would be a little bit too complicated. Let's go to the 2 Peter. 2 Peter 2, verse 6. For God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to Tartarus. Now the English word here is hell, but the word behind that in Greek is Tartarus. It's the only instance in the New Testament where the word Tartarus is used. It's like a holding area of the dead, putting them into gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment. And then Jude will repeat that. Jude is basically a sequel to 2 Peter. And he will say, Jude verse 6, and the angels do not keep their positions of authority, but abandon their own home. These he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains, for judgment on the great day. So apparently, some of the demons, and I guess these were not, but some of the demons apparently transgressed so greatly that they were banished from being able to roam the earth and put in some special holding area called Tartarus, or referred to as Tartarus in 2 Peter, and were not free to roam the earth and cause trouble. These demons apparently were still allowed to roam the earth and were not being held in Tartarus yet, but they didn't want to go to Tartarus. Apparently they had other demons that they knew of that were in Tartarus already, and they didn't want to go there. So they were begging him not to send them to Tartarus. Personally, I would prefer him to send them to Tartarus. If I were there, if I were one of the apostles there, I'd be egging Jesus on to send the demons to Tartarus, but he doesn't do that actually. So the demons begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on a nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, send us among those pigs, allow us to go into them. He gave them permission. Now again, personally, I would prefer him to send them to Tartarus, but I'm not the one who makes those calls. And the evil spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Now, I don't know what happened to the demons afterwards. Demons don't die, so I don't know what happened to them once the pigs that they were in died or drowned. Did they go somewhere else? Did they go to Tartarus after all? I'm not sure. But who knows? There's no follow-up to that. Those tending the pigs, these would not have been Jews, because Jews would not have had pigs, ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. This is Gentile territory. And the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and also told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. So he does. He doesn't stick around. They lost their chance to have Jesus minister to them. I don't know what he was going to do there. I don't know. I'm guessing he would have tried to preach and teach and heal there, but they wanted to go away, so he grants them what they want. He leaves. God, in the end, will let us have what we want. If we simply don't want to have anything to do with him, he won't make us. He'll let us have what we want. Now, I think we'll end up finding out that what we wanted wasn't really good. But he's not going to force himself on us, and there will come a point in time, if we just say no to him often enough, or forcefully enough, and he'll say, okay, you're on your own. He will do that eventually. And here, Jesus did. He didn't put up a fight. He didn't try to insist that he get to stay and preach to them. He just left. As Jesus was getting in the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus did not let him go, and said to him, go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So in this instance, he is telling someone to go and to tell. We have seen him consistently up to this point tell people not to do that, to refrain from spreading the word about him. In this case, he is not. He's actively telling the guy to go. My guess is because this is probably a Gentile. This is probably the region of the Gentiles. And so it would not have caused such a political stir for the word to get out in the Gentile region. In Judea or even in Galilee, it's a bit more sensitive for someone to be going around claiming to be the king of the Jews, while there is an actual king of the Jews, plus a Roman governor, who are actually ruling the land politically. Then if this is a Gentile in Gentile territory, it may not be as big of a problem. So I think that's the reason why Jesus gives this guy the instructions to do this, whereas he's been insisting that people don't do that before. So the man went away and began to tell the Decapolis, that's the Greek term for the 10 cities, you see that in the footnotes down there, that's a Gentile area, how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, so he didn't stay there very long. He was on the east side of the lake for a day. I don't know how long he was there. Not very long, apparently. He didn't really get to do anything there except heal this guy, and then the rest of the people there told him to leave. So he's back on the west side of the lake now somewhere. So he crisscrosses this lake a lot. We've already seen a couple of instances, and this was a major part of his transportation methods, was to sail across this lake. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue rulers, named Jairus, came there. This is basically like a church elder. Synagogues were their version of churches. There was their local congregations. And the synagogue rulers, they were not like mayors of cities or anything like that. They were basically like local church elders. It sounds kind of official, the synagogue ruler, but it was basically, like I said, equivalent to a modern day church eldership position. It was not, this guy was not like an official authority of any kind. He was just in charge of the synagogue. Then one of the synagogue rulers named Jairus came there. Seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she'll be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed all around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought to herself, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. I'm assuming this is some kind of runaway enlist period. It doesn't specifically say that, but I can't imagine it's anything else. I don't know what else it could possibly be talking about. Women having periods, of course, were unclean. There are many different ways of being declared unclean in the Jewish law system, and blood was a common way. Touching a dead body, which Jesus will do actually here in a bit, was another way. Leviticus 15, starting in verse 19. When a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. So this woman has been ritually unclean for 12 years. So no one's been able to touch her without becoming unclean for 12 years now. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he'll be unclean till evening. Whoever touches anything she sits on must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he'll be unclean till evening. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, he'll be unclean till evening. If a man lies with her and her monthly flow touches him, he'll be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time, other than her monthly period, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has a discharge, just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean, as is her bed during her monthly period, and anything she sits on will be unclean, as during her period. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean bleeding. So this woman has been unclean for 12 years, and anything she touches, anything she sits on, will be unclean for 12 years. So, and anybody who touches her will become unclean. Not for 12 years, until evening. So he washes his clothes and bathes and is unclean till evening. But this has been a problem, and so she's been a social outcast. There's no way she would have been able to have, even beyond the physical discomfort that she's experiencing, the social stigma surrounding her would have made her impossible for her to integrate into daily life for 12 years now. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and, trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering." So Jesus himself doesn't even take credit for this healing. He says that her faith has healed her. I don't know if Jesus genuinely doesn't know who it is or not. This is one of those instances in the scriptures, the Gospels, where it's fascinating to think about whether Jesus actually does not know who touched him, or is simply making a show so the woman does come forward. There are things apparently that Jesus didn't know when he was a man in a body. I mean, he even says later on that he didn't know the hour of his coming against Israel in judgment, which is, of course, a fact of history now. But during his time on earth, he didn't know when that was going to happen. He says that himself. So there are limits to his knowledge as a human being, but I have no idea. In Luke records an incident when Jesus was 12, saying that he grew in wisdom and stature, indicating that he was not complete in wisdom and stature as he was growing up. So I don't know if he knew or not. I don't know if he genuinely is asking because he does not know, or if he's asking because he wants this woman to come forward and be healed publicly. I'm not sure. I don't know. I really don't know. While Jesus was still speaking, so as this incident is going on, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Uh-oh. This isn't good. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Thanks a lot, guys. That's a great way to be sensitive, huh? Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him, except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. So Peter is there. If this account comes from Peter, he was there and he saw it all himself. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. And they would have professional mourners. They actually did have people who would mourn, who would professionally mourn. I don't have any specific. I didn't think to include any specific scriptural references, but we have read in some of the later Old Testament books these references to women who professionally mourn. Like that was their job. Like you call in the weeping women to come and weep and make a scene. To help set the mood for a public. In their day and time, it was okay to publicly express your emotions. Remember, right in Esther, that Mordecai, when he heard about the edict that was sent to destroy all the Jews, he tore his clothes and made a very public showing of his grief. In our culture, we have developed this trend towards stoicism, that you are not supposed to publicly show your emotion. You're supposed to just, endure it like a statue. That's like kind of like the Western Greek, and of course the British Empire was really founded on that. And so we inherited that kind of idea that you're not supposed to show emotion in front of the public. But in this day and time, even men did. Like even men would tear their clothes and put dust on their heads and go around and barefoot in sackcloth to show their mourning lamentation. And they had an entire class of people whose job was to be professional mourners at events like this. That's who these people are. There are people here who are, they probably have been ready for this. This child apparently has been ill and dying for some time. So now the child has died. They're carrying on their business of public mourning. Excuse me. So after he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples, Peter, James, and John, who were with him, and went in where the child was. And the child was dead. I don't know if this, so touching her means that Jesus will become unclean. Now he's going to raise her to life, so I don't know how that rule applies to such an instance. By the way, both these stories involve females. You have a 12-year-old dead girl and a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. I don't know if there's a connection between those two things. I don't know about that. I don't believe that woman, the woman who was healed is clearly not the mother of this child. And so I don't think there could possibly be a connection between those two events that happened 12 years ago, the child being born and the woman's condition starting, and now 12 years later, both these things get resolved in one day. I don't think there's a connection. But they do both involve an interesting 12-year period of time, and they both involve females, so a grown woman and a 12-year-old girl. He took her by the hand, the girl, and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately, so this is an indication that, now this is English translation, of course. We're reading an English translation. But this is an indication that the language Mark was originally written in was not the language that Jesus was speaking at this time. And we're going to see a few other references like that too. So whatever language Jesus and the people around him were speaking is not the language that this gospel was actually written in. Because this is an instance, and there are a couple of others, where Mark is going to say what Jesus actually said in his language that he was speaking, and he's going to translate for his audience who do not speak that language, Aramaic. And that language would actually be Aramaic. And Mark itself was written in Greek. So Mark was written in Greek, but Jesus was not speaking Greek. He didn't speak it here in this instance, and he wouldn't have spoken it on a daily basis either. He probably knew how to speak it. The people around him knew how to speak it. Peter wrote 2 letters in Greek that we have. But in the New Testament was written in Greek. None of the New Testament was written in Aramaic except for these few quotes and phrases here and there. But the actual spoken language that the characters in the story would have been using when these events were actually taking place was not Greek. Immediately the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. But he gave them strict orders not to let anyone know about this. And he also told them to give her something to eat. Jesus likes eating. We see a lot of references to Jesus eating with people. Yeah, even in the very end of the Gospels, in John 21, and just about the last time we see Jesus before he goes away, he's standing on the shore while some of the apostles at least are in a boat catching fish, and he's making breakfast for them. So Jesus liked eating, and he liked sharing meals with people. I'm not a big eater, and I don't like sharing meals with people, but Jesus did, so I can't argue with that. Speaking of, it's 11:30 actually in the morning, and I have not eaten yet, so I gotta do that. So that'll be enough for today.